here with us. We really appreciate everyone being here with us for this conversation with Maria Wisdom. And I thought we could take a moment just to wrap up our thoughts a little bit. And then I thought we could have a little bit of a conversation between Dr. Wisdom and me, because I think we've both had similar, even though we have very different educational backgrounds, we've had similar experiences of having to carve out innovative careers for ourselves and maximize our skills and interests and kind of pivot within academia to have careers that are rewarding and relevant and use our skills. So I'm really glad Maria's here to join us. Let me just take a minute to tell you a bit about Dr. Maria LaMonica Wisdom. She is Director of Interdisciplinary Advising and Engagement at Duke University and currently works very closely with the Provost's Office and Trinity College of Arts and Sciences on initiatives related to doctoral education reform. Maria is an expert and an advocate for best practices in mentoring and coaching. Maria, in an earlier life, this is very interesting, and I'd love to ask you more about this, was an associate professor of English at Columbia College in South Carolina before transitioning to full-time administrative work at UNC Chapel Hill. Maria's highly acclaimed published author in professional development and PhD coaching in particular. You've launched several interesting and useful initiatives, including the Versatile Humanist and a PhD coaching program here at Duke. So I would really like to hear a little bit more about kind of your background, especially that transition from that tenure track position to where you are now.
Yeah, no, thanks so much, Sharlini, and thanks for inviting me. I'm thrilled to be here and to be with all of you this afternoon. So yeah, I have gotten a lot of questions about that career shift, primarily from humanities doctoral students. And in my first 3 years, that was primarily the population at Duke I was working with, and now I'm working with a slightly broader group. So I get to retell the story. So I'll try to keep this as short as possible because I'm hoping we'll have my answers as streamlined as possible. So there's more time for conversation at the end. So in 2012, yeah, I was an associate professor at a small college. I had even managed to publish one book on Victorian women writers. And for reasons I won't go into now, though I'm happy to share them later if anybody's interested. I finally decided after several years of soul searching, it was time to go. And my husband and I decided we wanted to live in the Triangle. I decided I wanted to pursue academic administration. And about 9 months later, I got a job offer from UNC Chapel Hill. That's the extremely short version. And so it was not in any way an easy transition. And there was a lot of strategy, skill, and luck that went into it. And I think it's really amazing to me now as I look back, because that was in 2012, and man, that was 9 years ago. And then when I look and see how long I was actually in academia, strictly as a faculty member, 2 years as a postdoc, 11 years as a professor of some sort on the tenure track, I have been out of that faculty world almost as long at this point as I was in it. And one thing I will say is, as I loved being a faculty member. I mean, in a lot of ways, it was the right career for me. And if things had gone differently, it might have still been the right career. But when I look and I compare the first 13 years of my adult career to the last 9, it is the last 9 that have been truly exhilarating. I mean, they have been just dynamic. They have been unpredictable. I have learned and grown so much more in 9 years than I did in the previous 13. So again, not slamming academic careers, they're wonderful. And I hope people try to achieve those all the time. But there is so much to offer people who sort of maybe consider other options as well.
Thank you. And I think, so that's been my experience too, right? My background, again, I have a PhD in biomedical engineering, but whole other series of events led me to have to get a full-time job when I was finishing up my PhD the last 2 years with a baby and a full-time job and writing a dissertation, right? So that I was like, but that job kind of started to open my eyes to the wealth of possibilities, the intersections. The things that interest me are the intersections, in my case, of science, research, science policy, economic development, workforce development, innovation. How does all of that fit together, right? And I think in process, the types of careers that you and I have had, Maria, I think we're constantly having to be innovative, to think about where our skills can best be applied. And in some, in some situations, like the most recent one, the role I'm playing with the Office of External Partnerships, I wrote my own scope of work. And I said, here's where I think I can be useful to Duke University and to the larger community. So I wanted to ask you about, speaking to innovation and how do you constantly innovate to keep your skills in demand and your career interesting and rewarding and fulfilling.
Yeah, and thanks for that question, Sharlini. And I will, full disclosure, up until the time I left my faculty role, I don't think I ever used the word innovation ever, right? It just wasn't a word that applied to me, a word that I found useful in daily life. And so here I am now talking about my innovative career. And I think one thing that, or maybe misperception I had about innovation was that it was sort of all action. And there's a lot of action, right? You think of someone innovating, at least I tend to think of like a mover and a shaker and somebody, who had it done yesterday. And, but when I look at my own trajectory, at least in the past 9 years, the foundation of my innovation has been reflection. You really cannot innovate well or effectively unless you first know yourself, your strengths, what you can offer, your liabilities, how you're perceived in the organization. And secondly, you've got to know your organization. I mean, you just need to read it like a textbook or whatever it is you study as an academic. And you have to understand who's in the organization, what the organization stands for, what its values are, where it hopes to go in 5 years. Because if you don't know yourself and where you fit into your organization's vision of the future, your outlook will not be very good. So that to me is innovation, based on a reflective foundation.
I'm so glad you said that. I think this ties right back into our very first session with Melissa Bostrom, right? Where we started off with knowing yourself, knowing what your skills are, know what you're, not only what you're good at, but what makes you excited. It sounds kind of cliched, but what gives you that drive to, to show up every day and be excited about your job and do your best work, right? So and very, very important about knowing your organization, either the organization that you're in or the organization that you are hoping to move into. And then that again, Maria, I couldn't have planned this better.
Good.
Ties into what Dara Wilson Grant's workshop talked about, research, and she was talking about the scope of salary expectations, but it's also the culture of the organization, the expectation, the hopes, their milestones, their strategies, right? And that's certainly true whether it's a private company or it's an institution of higher learning like Duke University, or even federal or state government, right? Everyone has strategic priorities and types of skills that they're looking for, and how do your particular skills and interests match with that?
Exactly. And really, you have to be a scholar of the organization, if that resonates.
Yeah. So I actually, we had, I think, some great examples of that in some of the breakout sessions. I know you were able to sit in on at least one, and I was able to sit on Yaying Feng and Avery Paxton's sessions, which were both very interesting. So I wanted to know if you had any thoughts or takeaways, anything that struck you from listening to that conversation that you wanted to.
Oh yeah, the one I went. So I was in the humanities breakout session 1 with Dr. Jen Gilmore, who now is senior level marketing executive for a wealth management firm. And she told us a story which has parallels to ours. Where she found herself as a PhD student, just trying to make ends meet, writing her dissertation, doing temp work at a bank. And she paid attention. And she actually didn't share this in the breakout session, but I've talked to her in the past and I know some of the other details. She had a habit of reading everything she was assigned to copy. And because she read everything and she was interested in learning about the company, she realized they had just acquired a small bank in an historic area of Boston. So cue Jen, she went and talked to her supervisor and said, I would love to write a history of this bank you just acquired. And so again, being a scholar of the organization, knowing where you can plug your skills in, that really struck me. The other thing that really struck me about what Jen said is, in the early days, especially as she was trying one thing and then the next, she said, it wasn't my career, it was just a job. And then an opportunity opened up and I took another job. And I think that is where a lot of us academics get hung up. We get, for good reasons, we get so emotionally invested in our work and it's fraught with meaning and purpose and value. And I'm not dismissing any of those things. You need to have those things. But sometimes, putting a little bit of distance between yourself and the opportunities in front of you can be really productive, because suddenly every decision isn't so fraught. And at the end of the day, sometimes a job is just a job, and then you can go and hike and hang out with your dog or your kids or do whatever else excites you. So those were two cool takeaways from Jen's conversation.
I think that's great, because this comes back to the way most of us as PhDs are, and this has changed a lot within institutions, but the traditional way of training is, oh, you're going to become the world specialist in this one thing, and you're going to spend the rest of your life working on this one thing, and you'll be the world's expert and you'll have tenure, right? That doesn't exist for like 90% of people anymore.
99.
99%
Yeah.
people. Yeah, so that's some important perspective, I think, to bear in mind. Sometimes a job is just a job, but sometimes it can be very freeing and very fulfilling to have this flexibility to invent or reinvent yourself, or to carve new opportunities, right, within the same institution, if you're lucky enough to be in a large institution like Duke every few years. So I just wanted to share that, I sat in on the session with Ying Feng, who's a contractor for several large healthcare companies, and with Avery Paxton, who's a contractor with NOAA and has a really cool job with offshore robots looking for sea life. And one interesting thing we talked about, that what it means to be a contractor. A lot of people didn't know that you could be, when you work at a place like NOAA or a federal agency, you could be a federal employee or a contractor. And there are a lot of jobs out there with titles that may not be immediately apparent to people, and people don't know to look for. So I thought that was and same with Ying, he's a consultant for several large companies. So he has access to and works with the large companies. Same with Avery, works with federal employees, federal data, and is influencing at that level. But as the job title is a contractor. So I think the takeaway was to be flexible in, the types of jobs that you're looking for that are out there. Not everything is immediately, the title doesn't immediately tell you everything about the breadth and scope and possibilities of those jobs. So that I thought was very interesting. I wanted to make sure we had time to take any of your questions or comments or any other takeaways that anyone else wants to share from sessions that they sat in on. So feel free, we're a small enough group. I think you can either type your questions or comments in the chat or unmute yourself and just jump in. I see a couple of people who moderated on here as well. So, anything that struck you from any of the breakout sessions that you sat in on?
So I have a comment.
Yes, this is Amara. Can you identify yourself?
Can I do what?
Can you say who you are? Is this Amara speaking?
Yes. Oh, hi everyone. I'm Amara. I'm a second year student in the MDM program, PhD student. I'm actually also doing the INE certificate. So I'm really excited about this space. But yeah, one thing that struck me, not particularly in these breakout sessions, but in these sorts of career sessions that I've been attending, is I've noticed there's sort of a gap between how quickly students are learning about these career opportunities outside of academia, and what kind of training opportunities are available at their own institution for them, and how much the faculty that is mentoring them knows about it. So if I talk to my faculty mentor, if I talk to like other faculty mentors in the MGM program, they know very little about like all these opportunities that are available in their own institution. And they have many people in their labs who are interested in like doing non-academic careers, but they don't have the knowledge to like guide them as well towards those careers as they can guide like the students who want to go into academic careers. So I've been kind of wondering about like, are there more initiatives in motion to like involve the faculty in this sort of sessions too? And what is like their temperature on it?
Shall I?
Go ahead, Maria. And I'm also going to invite my colleagues from the Graduate School and the Career Center to chime in as well, because I know they do a lot of work. And great points, great question, Namara. You know, yes, the faculty members are specialists in their field, right? And are specialists at advising other people how to become tenured faculty, because that's their field. But there's a whole support network at Duke that you can take advantage of. So I will turn over to you, Maria, and then invite my other.
Yeah, and Mara, that's a great question. And it's definitely a question that people are asking across higher education is, you know, how can faculty best support PhD students in non-academic careers? And it's a challenging question because, as you know, Sharlini pointed out, faculty also need to be specialists in their field, which takes time. They also need to publish and meet the milestones for tenure and promotion. So in some ways it would be good, but their capacity is also limited. And that is exactly why everyone needs a team of mentors. And so on one hand, I do think that Duke can and will do more to continue to help the faculty mentor and support you as well as possible. I'm involved in some of those conversations. That said, I think this is really an opportunity for everyone to be as proactive as possible and just trying to really think about, you know, what are my needs? What questions do I have about the work world, you know, about my professional path forward? And spend some time thinking about who else at Duke could maybe answer those questions. And it might be completely outside your department. It could be, there's one example of a possible resource, and we have the obvious ones, which are great. We have, you know, Career Center, you know, we have the grad school, but there's also, I think, roles at Duke where it's a little less visible, but we have I don't know how many staff there are at Duke, but Duke has highly trained staff. Some of the best in their profession are at Duke. And these people are just a wealth of information about possible non-academic careers. And so, you know, I guess that's all to say. I would encourage people to really, be a scholar of your organization. Who is there? And of course, you could even go outside Duke, of course, but I think it just is incumbent on people to really be strategic about where their network is and don't, you know, and I think be realistic and we need to be realistic in what our faculty can actually do and how much they could know at this point, especially.
Great point. And I will say, you know, so the folks at the Career Center, Rachel Coleman's here, are fantastic. Melissa Bostrom at the graduate school, Molly Starback. So there are a lot of, the easiest thing I think to do is to get on listservs, get on the INE Innovation Entrepreneurship newsletter. You'll get information about workshops, mentorships, opportunities, right? Experiential courses. Same with everyone has a newsletter. Postdoc services has a newsletter, graduate school has a newsletter, Career Center has a newsletter. I would look into not just those offices, but there are student organizations. There's a new one called Nucleate, which is students interested in, it's a student-run organization, national organization. They're starting a RTP chapter for students interested in working in startups, in life science startups in particular. There are organizations like Women in Bio. There are organizations RTP-wide that have a lot of this type of opportunity to learn more about the different types of careers and workshops and, you know, ways to prepare yourself. I would say, I'm just going to read out Amy Lene's question. Any hidden gems at Duke that PhD students should be aware of before they graduate? Things to take advantage of. We've talked about some of them. Anything else? And anyone else on the organizing team who wants to jump in as well?
Hi there.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, hi there. So thank you so much, Sharlini, for mentioning Nucleate. we are announcing today that we've got $1.5 million to distribute to up to 8 participating teams at the end of participation in the Innovate Activator program. So that's a great opportunity to get your very first seed money if you're interested in establishing a company here in RTP. So yeah, very excited, and please fill out an application. It's active until November 8th.
So that was Victoria Goldenstein. Please message her if you're interested. And
Thank you.
somebody was going to say something. Was that? I can't tell. Somebody else was it Melissa, Rachel?
I was just going to echo Maria's sentiment about finding a community of people to help you through your career development. Support comes from all different types of individuals from different backgrounds. And so utilizing resources at Duke that are here to support you, as well as, folks outside, folks off campus, employers can be resources, mentors can be resources. It's just not necessarily trying to find one person to do it all, but really finding that community to help support you in a variety of different ways.
And here's a question about going about international job searches. I'm going to defer to the Career Center folks on this one.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So there are definitely some different considerations when we look at the international job search pertaining to visa status, looking at if you are an international student, OPT requirements and different things like that. So we do partner very closely with visa services and encourage students to make sure that they are aware of that resource and that they can get that information about things that are specific to their type of sponsorship, because everything's a little different and it is changing. One tool that I want to share, I'm going to go ahead and put it in the chat too, that the Career Center recently adopted is a tool called InnerStride. And it is a career planning tool specifically for international students. So if you are international, this can be helpful for that. If you are looking to go abroad, I would also recommend the Duke Alumni Association. There are regional chapters of Duke alums all over the world. So you can find an alumni chapter in the area where you are looking, and you can connect with them for support of different tools and recommendations for how to job search in that area, and just to get a better feel of the landscape in that area. So some tools for those who are international looking at opportunities, and for those who are domestic students looking to go internationally, there's still some ways to link up with folks and try to get that on the ground knowledge to help you with the job search there.
Thank you. So I just wanted to also point out that tomorrow there will be a PhD career fair, and the link to join tomorrow is in the agenda. So that is another that's another kind of call to action that you can do, follow up from today's conversation, now that you have all this information, all this energy and inspiration, hopefully, to go to that career fair tomorrow. And, any and all of us are here as resources as well. So Maria, do you have any final thoughts before I do a final wrap up?
Oh, I guess, I think you had sent me another question in advance that I had written a little answer to. So I think you would ask me in terms of like, what advice I had for people. Well, I'm just going to say it anyway. I think one thing I would want to impart in terms of, if anyone is thinking, my gosh, I really do want something that's not maybe faculty position, a little out of the box, but I don't know how to start. I think, and again, this really is from my own experiences, but I felt like for me, the most critical thing was you've got to confront any fear of change, because I think that is something that holds so many people back. And when I think about, I honestly, after now I've been coaching people, and just after hundreds of interactions, I think the lengths some people will go to avoid the discomfort of change is extraordinary. There are some people who will sacrifice any number of things so that they can avoid change. And I'm not saying this is everybody, but I think it's really change management. And I think that is often at the heart or the beginning of a successful career search and a successful career trajectory. Because, as much as it seems very distant and formidable to get that first job after the PhD, that's just the beginning, and the change will not stop. And, you will need to be nimble and figure out how to manage change constantly, because I think that is one truth. And I think those of us who are not faculty or tenured, change is the only constant. I didn't make that up.
Change is the only constant.
So I think that's, and so, you've given, I think in not, being on the tenure track, maybe you sacrifice some stability and predictability, but, do you want your entire career to revolve around that value of predictability and stability, or are there other values that are more important to you? And I'll just end on that note.
No, I think that's a fantastic note to end on, because it also ties back to innovation, right? Innovation is predicated on change.
Yeah.
And if you're and it's normal, I think, to feel comforted in our routine and predictability, and it's a little scary to step outside the box. And
yeah, but nobody has to do it alone, especially not at Duke.
Nobody has to do it alone. And I did want to acknowledge Delisa's comment as a follow-up on Amara's question, that yes, we can certainly, do a better job. That's always, an ongoing effort to better integrate awareness and training of, non-academic career path support amongst, not just those of us on the organizing committee, but making sure PIs and faculty also have access to that information. But to Maria's point too, right? PIs and faculty can do so much, and we're here to support.
Right. And again, it doesn't have to be either or. I think it should be a both end, right? Yeah. Let's enhance our ability as an institution. But I think I think what I want to caution people against is getting into this position like, well, my external circumstances, the external resources aren't there, or they aren't accessible, therefore I will do nothing. And I think that's a very disempowering stance. So again, that's why I'm saying both end. Being proactive personally, but also looking for people outside of yourself who can help you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just wanted to follow up on my comment. So I definitely agree that we have ample resources at Duke. I think the issue, there's several issues, but the issue is one, what Amara was saying, is that faculty don't know. So even aside from the faculty that will not help you get a job outside of academia, the ones who are open to it just have no idea how to help you. And so because you are honestly responsible to your advisor for the completion of your PhD, trying to negotiate, say, for example, time spent out of lab to do these internships, especially ones that require you to spend significant amounts of time, for someone who doesn't understand what is needed today to get a job in that specific field, they're going to have a hard time understanding that. So I don't think it's necessarily at fault that we don't have enough resources. It's how do we integrate these various resources with graduate education so that it's integral to a PhD student's experience. Because right now it feels very much like, oh, these resources are available, but you need to find a way to access it. And graduate students themselves have a lot to focus on. So we have to balance all of that. And I think if graduate programs want graduate students because they value us, and the PIs want PhD students because they value the work that we do in labs, they should be committed to training us fully. That includes job placement. So that's just what I wanted to say.
That's very well said. Thank you.
Very well said. Very well said. And it's an excellent point. And I'm hoping we have organizations such as OBGE and BioCore that could help bridge those conversations as well. But yeah, very well said.
And the institution is, I'm in the provost office, and the provost office is aware of this and they're on it. And I think what's hard is it's hard for students and faculty it's hard to know what's going on sometimes, right, at the more senior levels. But there's lots of resources being put towards trying to address the very problem you outline right now.
Thank you. And I'm afraid we're at 1:31, so we're going to have to wrap it up there. But happy, I think any of us on the organizing team would be very happy to continue this conversation. I did want to shout out, thank you to all the speakers, all the moderators, and I want to make sure that I give major kudos to everyone by name on the organizing team. Rachel Coleman, Melissa Bostrom, Molly Starback, Amy Kostrava, Paige Cooper, and Holly Hoff from the various offices at Duke that co-organized this event. And last but not least, I really want to give a big round of applause to Catherine Black at INE. She has been working behind the scenes to make sure everything, all the logistics are done, everything is in place, everyone's confirmed, everyone knows where to be. And that's everyone. Thank you, Catherine. Great job. And I hope you all got a lot of value out of this event. And we'll stay in touch, join our various mailing lists, reach out to us if you need anything or have any questions. So thank you once again, and hopefully we'll see you at the next one. Thanks, everyone.